We're gonna get that going.
I'm used to my AirPods. One goes out, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I guess we'll just go one side.
I guess we're just listening in the left ear.
Do you ever pretend like you're a telephone operator?
Oh, like in life? Have I ever done that? Yes. Do I actively take practice in that? No. What about you?
No, never.
Never. You've never pretended to be a phone operator?
No. Nope. I don't even know why I brought it up.
It has nothing to do with the movie.
I never did anything like that. Hey, Chelsea.
Oh, hey, Victoria.
You know what I need?
What?
A breath of fresh movie.
Me too.
Oh my god.
Cool.
That's a movie I like to see.
We're up late.
Ding ding ding.
I mean, not really.
My bad.
Late for us. No.
Mama gotta get the groceries. Mama had to get the groceries.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
This is a Breath of Fresh Movie, a weekly podcast where I, Victoria Harley,
And I'm Chelsea Pope.
yeah, and each week we watch a movie neither one of us has seen before, and then we talk about it.
And we won't talk about everything, but we will talk about anything.
Look out.
So
Look out.
just
You've been warned.
Spoilers ahoy. Ding
Yeah.
ding.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is one that like were you surprised by the ending or
No, I mean, this is definitely like, I don't think it matters. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess like you know, try to watch this without knowing anything, but it's like it tips its hat pretty early on.
It's not gonna really ruin it if
I'm not really watching it for the thriller aspect.
Yes.
It's much more just that like what carries them. Oh, we should probably say what the movie is, right?
Oh yeah, no worries. I got us. I just wanted to get us to that checkpoint.
Yeah,
question.
I mean, I will just say it is technically a thriller. So if you want to try to,
if you want to go on the ride,
that's fine.
Then you may want
the thriller part's not really what makes it that great, in my opinion.
I agree. I was in this for the performances of the actors.
Exactly.
So, not that there's not a plot. It's a very sort of serviceable. It's serviceable. You know, it works.
It's a serviceable
It's
plot.
a story.
Exactly. It's a lot more just about like
this
the
week
tone and humor and dryness. You know,
Yeah.
it's just well performed.
there's a lot of good humor.
Yeah.
We're talking this week about the 1947 noir thriller Lured, which was starring, unexpectedly, Lucille Ball, and a little more expectedly, George Sanders. And it was directed by Douglas Sirk, who later would become known for a very different style of films. The fact that he's doing noir, it's sort of a strange combination. It's a bunch of people, well, again, with the exception of Sanders, I feel like the other two are known for something tonally very different than what we get here.
No, that makes sense. I think a lot of the appeal, you know, when we were thinking about watching this, for me, it was, you know, right away, like Lucille Ball.
That was my pitch.
Really?
That was my first pitch. Yeah.
She's so... I've really only watched I Love Lucy. Maybe, I think, like, you know, Yours, Mine, and Ours, and the whatever, you know, there's like a few other random things she's popped up in.
Big trailer, right?
Right, but like nothing. I
mean, still comedy.
Everything's fun. Everything is like Lucille Ball, very broad physical humor. But then also too, you know, what you're saying with George Sanders, and also Boris Karloff's randomly in it too.
Yeah,
and he plays like a funny character. Like it's an odd flavor profile. It's like a weird dish.
Yeah.
That you almost build it up and think like, oh, these ingredients can't go together. But then you're like, oh, they do kind of go together. Didn't change my life, but
it worked. Yeah.
The soup is good.
Yeah, the orange worked.
The soup is good. I wouldn't have put those flavors together, but it worked.
So Karloff, it's so funny because, you know, he's third on the marquee, you know, third in the building.
Right.
He's a big name.
But he's barely in.
He's only in
casting.
it for one. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And the producer knew that having a big name like that on the marquee would help like draw people in.
Yeah.
So they had somebody else who played that role. They even shot all the scenes.
And they just swapped it out.
But then they were like, once they got Boris Karloff to do it, they're like, all right, we're going to redo that.
Yeah. I think that was...
Stunt casting. It's exactly what it was. And in fact, I want to talk more later about the producer of this, Hunt Stromberg, but he did some publicity stunts and some fun, cool...
Sure.
He had some interesting... You know, this is Hollywood's golden age, which when people say that, they mean like kind of the 30s and 40s. And it's just... it is a pretty incredible time for what's going on both behind the camera and in front of it. So, you know, this is a movie that comes out of that time period, you know, so it's much fun. If you haven't seen it and you want to keep listening, this is a movie about Sandra, who's an American taxi dancer. I will explain what that is later. Who's working in London, and she's distraught when her friend disappears. Investigators basically employ her to draw out the killer. You know, apparently this disappearance is a series of murders and disappearances by the poet killer.
Yeah.
Who has this like
very sort of like on the nose noir, like again super by the numbers. The poems were kind of
it felt a little like Jack the Ripper-y, with it being in London and all that.
But then also too like very little London flavor of any kind, even though it happens to
like
be
the investigator and George
the investor.
Sanders.
It's
because it wasn't filmed there,
it's so much of just Lucy, that Lucille, that like. You know, and she has a very normal, strong American accent, you know?
Yeah, but...
she's a little almost streetwise.
Yeah, and in fact, like, there's a whole, I think, line about, like, they... Like, oh, like, we like American women because they have the habit of, like, putting us on our back foot right away or something. And I don't know, it was clear that the movie was enshrining and celebrating her being kind of smart, quick-witted, like better, and that's the thing. Okay, so she's working as a taxi.
American women, they're no shrinking flowers. You
exactly,
know?
Yeah.
You got this brassy redhead.
I'll go undercover.
American girl, and she's like, I can hold my own. Oh, thanks for the toy. Here's your toy. I love that scene.
Yeah,
you know, little bits like that.
And yeah, so she's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like she's fun, and I think it's almost like she's playing a character closer to who she really was as a woman than, of course, somebody like, you know, Lucy in the Lucy, you know, Lucille Ball. And also it's worth mentioning that this movie, I mean, Lucille Ball was an actress for MGM and she was trying a lot of different things. She was kind of known as a queen of the Bs, which basically means like, yeah, you end up in a lot of B movies and you might have the lead role, but no one cares. And so this is just kind of one of many. And then she did a lot of radio work, and that's when she developed My Favorite Husband. And that became this really hit radio show, and it was about being married to a guy who runs a band in a nightclub. And so CBS, because it was so popular, was like, oh, can you develop this into a show? And that became I Love Lucy. But that was, you know, the radio show wasn't until 1948. So anyway, all of this predates the I Love Lucy thing.
She really built herself up the way like TikTokers now do. She's like, oh, you gotta make your own. You gotta make your own web series. You gotta make your own. Make your own content.
I think it.
Well, she was an early pioneer of comedian content creators.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, the character was so distinct. They realized that it wouldn't work without her.
Right.
So we need you to sign on, and like that was at that point, right, when she was like, okay, but you have to take my husband.
Right.
And they were like, what, do we have to do that?
Such was not the case with this film.
Yeah.
Whereas she was inextricably linked to that iconic role. Her, the whole Queen of the Bees thing. I mean, even in this, you know, she was swapped in. Yeah. As another, she's taking on, she's taken the scraps of another actress's, declination.
Yeah, there was somebody else who was thought for this, but just kind of like lost her patience because she really wanted to do something. So yeah.
Yeah, no, she's definitely taken her lumps.
Yeah, oh for sure. Some of the things that like really stood out to me just watching it was, first of all, the way that Inspector says poems. He's like, poems. It's the poems.
Yes.
I did think it was kind of cool at the beginning that we got to see a little bit of how like forensics worked for like.
Yeah, it was very artsy and they didn't quite keep that up for the rest of the film. No. It was mostly just wide and mid shots, but that opening bit with the light traveling and then then any close-ups that they would do, any close-ups they do on the poems or any of the ransom texts. It's and those were fun little flavor splashes. We are watching a noir film, huh?
Right.
Every so often, sorry, I just watched this funny opera scene with Lucille Ball, but
it is funny
it's a
how
thriller.
it's a noir thriller, but it's actually a romance.
It's really, it almost feels more like a rom-com.
It's a weird,
a dry.
It's a screwball noir.
Screwball Noir. Yeah.
I feel like maybe not quite, but it's like somewhere in there because it's not
not enough
funny.
slapstick, I think, for the Screwball, but it's got a lot of it.
But it has some like absurdity to it in the way that she's suddenly in this very high stakes situation of having to be, she becomes bait, right, for this killer because he goes after dance hall girls. And I mentioned earlier something called a taxi dancer, which I'm like, oh, what is that? Is that what I think it is? And it's exactly what it sounds like. You used to be able to go out to a dance hall at this time and you could pay for a dance, like a dime a dance or whatever. And that was a job that women could have, you know. And so she, in the story, you know, she's gone over to get this. She came over believing that she was having this big part in a real show. She shows up. That turns out to not be true. So she's doing this job. It's not enviable. She doesn't like it. No one likes doing it. But it is kind of interesting. I'm like, we don't, what is the equivalent of that today? You know, like
I guess just an escort.
I guess, but the idea that just dancing could be something that you could,
like you could just be sitting on the sidelines
and someone could be like, you're my favorite part. I mean, that guy who like says the same thing to all the girls. I thought that was funny. Yeah. But she's so, you can tell from her expression just from the get that like, she's like, my heart's not in any of this. This is just a job. And you know, her friend is like, I'm out of here. Like, and that was, there was something really sweet about that. I mean, wasn't that kind of how Showgirls started? Like, right. Like somebody's like, I'm going to finally get out of this life. And then they go missing, you know? And, I don't know. I thought there was something interesting about that. But yeah, taxi dancers. I had never heard of that. I learned a new thing.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
Dime a dance.
Dime a dance. Let's see. I think so. I haven't talked about George Sanders in depth yet, but we had a movie in my household growing up on VHS tape. It was a copy of Shot in the Dark, which is the second Pink Panther movie. He's in that, and the voice, like basically all I'm saying is this voice George Sanders has, which is this deep, velvety. I can't do an impression of it.
Shere Khan from
the
Jungle Book.
That's right. 1967 is the Jungle Book.
Yeah. So
you remember the tiger? That's him.
Right. And
it's a beautiful voice. Anyway, it's been in my head since I was a kid. You know? So there's so anytime he shows up in a movie, I'm just sort of tickled. But he, I think, must be like contractually obligated for all his characters to self-identify as a cat, because everyone describes him as a cat. Like every description you'll find of this guy, they use the word cat. I don't know anyone else who's called a cat. But
in that context of him being like, it's supposed to be this sexual, like it's like a compliment of his.
It is
of his.
It's like a sophisticated playboy who's kind of naughty and amoral, but detached, and he's
perching and watching.
Yeah,
like in the opera scene, he's just watching.
Yep.
Watching.
He's got so much confidence. And and he was in, All About Eve, and he had played a very similar kind of, it's these sort of often upper class characters who are kind of villainous.
Right.
And he's perfect. So of course Shere Khan, right? Yeah. What a perfect, and even that, the way it's drawn, it's like, yeah, that tiger has a strong chin. I know that's they're using something. But I just thought he was really fun to watch, and I didn't think he would have chemistry with Lucille Ball, but it worked. I thought they were like really fun to watch together.
They understood the assignment.
They really did.
And Lucille too, just like, I think when you are this sort of like occupational actress in the hall, and you're doing, Queen of the Bees, you're doing a lot of these fill-in type of roles, or even if you're playing a lead, the idea is that you're getting you're still getting lost in it in a way. And so, but I think that is a testament to adaptability for her character work.
Yeah.
In spite of there being obviously plenty of moments for me I couldn't help but be looking at Lucy Ricardo, because the hair and makeup and a lot of her styling, it just, imagine if like if Lucy Ricardo had been put on like I don't know, I'm trying to on Ritalin or something. She's a little less manic. It's just, it's like she was a more sort of like grounded version of that.
It's
in a
like
way.
a tempered Lucy. Like,
yeah, she had some funny moments, like when she's like, she gets handed this little baby gun. She's like, I hope I don't shoot myself. And he's like, you remember the force? And she's like, yes, sir. Like, just the face,
yes,
she's
sir. Yes,
sir.
No, I like her. There's something very sweet, about her in this. Yeah. But without her being naive.
Right. She's not like...
She's sweet, but not an idiot.
Right.
And that's nice to see.
I mean, I'm genuinely glad she's able to hold her own, because she gets assaulted multiple times in this fucking movie.
And like tempted, almost human trafficked at another point, like the South America job.
They really just pounce at her, and yet she still seems pretty like...
She keeps it together.
She keeps showing
hindsight,
up.
One thing we didn't mention is that the killer's MO is that he places an ad in the personal column, right? So because she's going to work for the cops and be this like bit of bait, they're like, well, you'll just answer all the personal column ads. And there's that one...
Not a bad strategy in terms of like, just,
I mean, good for a movie.
You got to answer all the ads.
I feel like that should have gone on a little longer.
I would have liked a little more of a cycling. I think that would have been fun. Maybe they didn't want to... They wanted to keep Boris's scene as long as possible.
Yeah,
like, I think
you're right.
I would rather lost some of the
Boris scene.
The latter half. Or sorry, I would say I'd rather have lost... I don't know. I think it didn't necessarily dive in right away sometimes. I think there's just like, if we trimmed enough fat and then could have had a montage of her answering ads, because that actually confused me initially.
Yeah.
And oh wait, now she's with this, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, like the ad...
You kind of have to pay attention.
The ad that was placed by the little boy, I just thought that was like really, like she got catfished like, by a kid.
I love that. There could have been a lot of fun moments. Yeah. More moments like that.
And they, and I thought it was going to go that way. If for no other reason than those shots of the personal columns, there was one I wrote down was, "Are you young, chic, shapely, and no prude? Easy money."
No prude.
And no prude. Looking for a bird lover or a bookish type. It was just funny. And of course, so we keep talking about this Boris Karloff scene. One of the ads that she responds to turns out, it's a guy who's an artist, or a fashion designer or something, and he put a fake name in the paper, but he's really this famous guy. But it's like, okay, this place is feeling a little strange. He's got this woman assisting him.
It's eccentric. Reminded me of like like Sunset Boulevard or like Twilight Zone.
Yes, yeah. Good vibes.
Like the shut-in ex-actress.
And the fact that this is being filmed in 1947, Karloff, it was the 1930s that he, was really big. And it's not to say that like he was in some sort of total twilight, but he wasn't at the height of his career at this point. Yeah. It was just he was a big name. And again, he was chosen because he had that sort of celebrity star power. He had that gravitas of being like this MGM historic giant.
It's kind of like Cher in Mamma Mia 2.
Exactly.
She's in it, but not enough. But not a. It's stunt casting.
It is stunt casting. This is the original. Stunt casting.
No, she actually does get like a whole song, and she's in the movie. Yeah.
I did think though the scene, because I'm like, okay, this is clearly a red herring. This is clearly not going to be the killer.
Right.
It's too early in the movie for it to be the killer.
Right.
And I did think it was funny that the tension is released when it's like, okay, prepare for this fashion show, and there's a curtain, and just like, okay, the house is full.
Big dog on a chair.
Yeah. When he opens the curtains, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's like there's a mannequin in a chair and a dog. And that dog is cute.
A cute dog.
There's something about the way her face, her expression falls.
She's it falls. My God, what is happening?
But it falls in this like, oh, okay.
This is gonna be one of these. Like, I like when he's like, turn, and she's like,
turn.
Like it's a lot of. She's very good with still being so like she's so expressive. Like a little goes a long way.
Yes, definitely. But it feels like so many of these actions feel like we're on the edge, or like we're just sort of talking around the idea of sex work, right?
Right.
Because the way she kind of like, once she realizes he's crazy, and she's having that brief word with the assistant, and she's kind of like, okay, so he's crazy, and she's like, is he dangerous? No, just don't cross him.
Yeah, I liked the maid being just like.
Yeah,
just tapped her
head. Like he's a little, I thought that scene.
He chops the record with a sword. Yeah, that's my I mean, I can't help. He's the best supporting for me.
Oh, okay.
Contest. Well, no, actually, I really like the inspector as well.
Harley Temple.
Yeah, Temple was fun.
Temple was good. Temple was played by Charles Coburn, which is a name I hear, and I know I've seen this actor in other things, but. For our more savvy listeners who are like, oh, I love Charles Coburn.
Yeah. It's charismatic. Yeah. Across the board, that is a nice thing about this movie. It's sort of, it's better than its own premise
Yes.
in that way.
Yeah. And in fact, the producer deliberately built a strong like foundation of supporting players.
Right.
Like before he went around casting the leads.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really smart about that.
Yeah.
Like every scene has competence.
Right.
Like, and that's why it's like, I know that's not like a great selling point for a movie. It's so competent.
Well, you would think that's the bare minimum, but sadly.
So, I mean, that's why I have a hard time being super critical of this. There was one shot I did think was actually really beautiful. There were a couple shots, and you know that's something Douglas Sirk would become known for. These really beautiful, lush, Technicolor, high melodrama movies that he made for Universal in the 50s. But you're seeing some of the early seeds of that, and some of the way the camera moves and the framing. And there was one shot where it's really high contrast and through chain link, and I just thought, ooh, that was artsy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. I wrote it
Good
down.
moments, and also the costumes too.
Oh,
just
fuck.
like, oh my god, when
She
she's
had
wearing the star dress was like so
The
pretty.
star dress was great. Also, she had some shoulder pads in one
Right?
scene. It was like, oh fuck.
No, she
and
looked
that
good.
white fur coat at the end.
I love the white. Yeah, I loved. They put her in a lot of white.
She was in tons of white.
There's a lot of white.
Which I mean, when you're
It
in
was
black,
pretty.
you're in a black and white movie, you should. You know,
It's
like
good.
there's no reason not
it
to.
makes her pop.
yeah
more.
That's the point. Contrast.
Yeah,
man.
and then she's already got the red hair too. It's like I'm like,
Yeah.
what could that have all looked like
Oh, in
seeing her
color.
in color?
Oh, it would have been intense.
Right. Well, her hair's like super fucking
Yeah.
red. Right.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I have to think about that sometimes as well. Like
Yeah.
the same with when I was watching like WandaVision and her hair looks blonde because of it being black and white, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it goes into color, and you're like, oh no, it's like she's got red hair. It's more
No,
of a
it's-
strawberry red, but it's also like again black and white.
Yeah, and-
Lucy looks almost blonde.
Yeah, no, that's what happens in black and white. Learning what red hair looks like in black and white. Oh, it looks just brownish or blonde.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it looks
doesn't-
like
you just don't-
a
Yeah.
straw color in a sense.
the color matters.
There you
It's,
go.
She used henna, by the way. Like
This is the heavy stuff.
Oh yeah,
It's
which
like
I've used that. It's great.
Yeah.
This movie was based on another film, a French film called Piège, and Piège is a French word for personal column. So that was the whole premise was held over, and it was picked up by this company called Oakmont Pictures, which didn't last long because. Sorry if you love Oakmont, and I'm about to offend you, but who's heard of Oakmont Studio? You know, anyway.
Yeah. Show of hands.
A show of hands. So Oakmont Pictures was started by James Nasser, who he and his 6 other brothers were running a very successful chain of movie theaters in California. One of which was the Castro Theater in San Francisco. You know, great movie palace. But James was like, I want to get into production, and so he's like, all right, let's do it. And that's where this film sort of started. They decided we're going to adapt that. Henry Kessler, a producer, was brought on. He hires a screenwriter who was a real big deal to adapt it. But this guy's name will not appear on the credits of this movie because they made such drastic changes. So it went through a lot. There was a different woman, Joan Leslie, was set to star. But again, delays kind of led her to bow out. And then the producer sold the project to Hunt Stromberg. And this guy is really interesting. He's like one of the most prolific producers from the golden age of Hollywood. At the height of his career, they were producing like 52 movies a year, which is like a movie a week. And this was during the Depression, and MGM never, ever went into the red. Like it always stayed in the black. It's just... and I don't really care about business and stuff like that generally, but he turns out like the U.S. Treasury had him on a list of one of the 10 most highly paid CEOs in the country at the time. So dude was raking it in.
He's doing well.
And he was good at what he did.
I think it's interesting. This movie is a good example of an industry product, and it's no one's passion project.
Yep.
But it's a bunch of people kind of going, oh, we could do this and adapt that because it's about like the they were just they were trying to churn out their own content
it's like a gamble, right? It's like sort of a calculated risk.
That's a lot of the entertainment industry is just like, how do we make money more? How do we move this money from here to here?
Yeah, and it feels somehow safer than gambling. Like it's still more dangerous and risky than real business or regular
but
business.
It is like a business they're doing it's transactional. Like you create this thing to be consumed that's at a certain level of competency.
Yeah, and I heard something really interesting. I finally saw a Mank recently, which, whatever. It was okay.
Sure.
But there was one comment made by, I think it was whoever was playing Louis B. Mayer, and he mentioned that, like, we make a product that
It's a product.
It's a product, but it's like we sell it to people, and what we sell people is actually a memory of the experience. We retain the product.
Yeah.
Like, they come to see it, but we keep it. And, like, isn't that insane? There's no other thing like that.
It's actually really true.
Yeah. And so, anyway.
Protect your physical media.
Yes. So this was kind of just that time. You're right. Like, it was more businesslike, which might make you think more heartless. But in some respects, it meant that everybody was kind of professional and very much like.
Yeah. Like, everybody just kind of showed up and did the job. And it also feels like this very much was a stepping stone where everyone involved took it seriously, but we're clearly just cutting their teeth in various ways. Like, this feels like it's not a student film, but it's clearly not. No one went into this for it being to be their magnum opus.
No, definitely not. In fact, so many people continued to develop after this.
And it's still as good as it is in spite of that.
Exactly.
Because the modern equivalent of that is something like he's just not that into you or something, like, which are not good examples.
I understand what you're saying.
We're not it's nice to see something succeed that's that you can still do a good job.
Yeah.
Even if you're not, and even if it's not about heart.
No. And Hans Stromberg would produce a lot of really great films. Like, this didn't have to be his most important thing either. But I do want to mention that he produced the Thin Man films, like that series, which is very fun. He produced The Women, which I fucking love. He produced The Great Ziegfeld, Marie Antoinette. He produced all of Jean Harlow's films. He produced many of Joan Crawford's breakthrough films. He worked at MGM for something like 18 years. So what happened was, in 1936, Irving Thalberg, who was in his 30s and was sort of the wunderkind producer at the studio, he dies. He has a heart attack and he dies. And a couple of other people leave MGM, and it leaves Louis B. Mayer in exclusive control. And he and Stromberg, it's not clear really what happened, but contract dispute. Stromberg ended up walking away from a contract for like millions of dollars. He ended up leaving MGM. And he went and started his own production company and a couple of successes, but basically his career just kind of piddled out after that. And so it's really insane because this guy was like on top of the world. And I'm sure, he saved his money and all that. And he did buy a ranch and, he was doing like the movie ranch thing for a bit. But I don't know. It's like I wasn't familiar with this name, and it just, for the first time, I guess I kind of became very interested in the life of this one producer and that skill and that ability to, I know what will make for a film that works. Like, at the very least, we'll have something that works, if not something that's great. And I don't know, maybe that's very unromantic, but
decent comedy has like there's a formula to it, right?
Yeah.
You can hit all the marks, and if you know the marks and you have it down, even if it's not going to, even if it's not life-changing media, it's still going to be at least pretty good.
Well, and if this was the first noir I had ever seen,
I
would think it's really damn good.
No, it gets the job done. It just isn't like, it is not a masterpiece cinematic achievement for, like, everybody in that ends up doing better things.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone went on to have a better career afterward.
Right. This is beneath their potential, but a well-handled story that's on the way for them. This was a good stepping stone.
We made this on the way to something else. Yeah. The production had some problems. There were a lot of labor disputes happening at the time, which is not a problem. Pay your people. But it forced the production to switch studios, I think, a couple of times. Also, Lucille Ball had the flu for a week during production, so everything had to slow down. Also, she had a lot of bad luck. An arc light fell on her. Like, what the fuck? And then she passed out one day, I guess, because her corset was too tight.
Yeah. Like I said, she took her lumps.
She took a lot, yeah. The title was initially going to be called Personal Column, but Stromberg didn't care for it. So he decided to engage in this publicity stunt where he put ads in the actual personal columns of many major American newspapers, like all across the country, and soliciting a title. And of course, guess what won? Lord. The film premiered September 5th, 1947. And it was after this that the comedy radio program My Favorite Husband would eventually go to CBS and be adapted into I Love Lucy. So again, this was just before the world was going to change.
Yeah.
Just before.
I mean, her look was already reaching its final form.
It really was.
Point, so
I mean, she had that like pillbox bang.
She literally looks like Lucy Ricardo. I can't help but see that.
I mean, she was,
and it's hard to see past it too, because even the arch of the eyebrows, which I thought was a intentionally comedic choice, it's just the style. That's just the style. Yeah. But still, that height. Oh, you can't help it. Like, she always looks very present, even when she's like bored or pouting, it's a very like, what's she gonna do next? Like, I'm like what's
her performance reminded me a bit of Shelley Winters, like a little, like I don't know, just something like I'm like, oh, maybe Shelley Winters is kind of like a low-key Lucille Ball. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe I have that backwards.
You're not wrong.
Do you have reviews to share?
I do. The general reception of this is like pretty good for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see anyone raving.
Yeah, no one's raving, but most people aren't like tearing it to ribbons either. They're just like, it's good. It's not going to change your life, but it's pretty good. Like on Rotten Tomatoes, they only have positive critical reviews, but it has only a 68% audience score. So, it's adequate, but it's not knocking people. It's not changing people's lives.
I mean, I think that's a little low, but
I think it's a little low too.
But it's not low based on like a Rotten Tomatoes audience. I'm like, yeah, that's about right.
I would say, especially,
they're not a patient bunch.
This movie, if anything, it's almost a victim of the respective elements of the soup's own legacies, right? So you see these names, you see Boris Karloff on there. So if you're watching it as a fan of him, you'll be like, he's barely in this. If you're a fan of Lucille Ball as a comedian, you watch this, you're like, this isn't comedy. You're a fan of George Sanders. Well, this is kind of an on point
he's
thing.
Always
but he
the
actually
same.
Is still not. Even then, though, he's still, despite him being a lead, feels tertiary because it's mostly Lucille.
Yeah.
And so I could see why people who had any buildup of or preconception of
her,
if you were don't go in with high expect. Like, there are better thrillers. There are better noir. Go watch The Maltese Falcon, whatever.
I actually hate The Maltese Falcon.
That's just the first thing that's the first thing I could think of. In truth, I've never finished it. I just know it's one of the ones, I
find it so boring.
It's one of the ones.
I'm like, what is happening?
I genuinely think that the way that Lucille Ball and George Sanders, their chemistry, I think is a lot more powerful than in other noirs. I think they're so dry and and a competent noir, the femme fatale and the hard-boiled detective, I think the whole, like, what's in you, nothing that you can't fix is like, I think, they're both very sexy and they were hooking up in real life. But I think that there's like a charisma factor in the performances of this and again, it feels antithetical to but anyway, I have actual reviews to read. That was just the percentages. James Agee from Time. The picture is too busy with laughs to worry much about chills, but no one ought to complain about that. I was like, I thought that was actually, I don't think it's a knee-slappingly funny movie, but it is a lot of like the guy, like the inspector, and there's a dog on his lap, and he's like, the things I do for the force, or like the guy that Lucy dances with at the beginning.
There's a lot of like little cheeky wry moments
when she flirts with the wrong guy at the opera, and then he's going, and I need an aspirin. They put one on a little plate for us. These little moments that are just very
a little plate for that. There's really good. Actually.
There's a lot more. This doesn't feel.
It deserves a watch.
It deserves a watch, but not if you are like an obsessive noir fan, you'd probably like it, but also see like clearly this isn't.
It's uneven.
It's uneven. I will also say too on Letterboxd. Yeah, it's a 5-star. Artemisia. Like, I'd put me and George Sanders are the same because if I had opera glasses, I wouldn't watch the performance. I would watch Lucille Ball.
Yep,
I liked that. Most of these are actually like pretty meaty reviews, which I
that's interesting.
Which are in terms of people are writing full paragraphs.
It might, that's a lot. I don't think it.
That's fine.
I mean, an hour-long podcast, sure, but a whole paragraph.
Listen to us.
Listen to me.
Just don't these people. No, don't they know that Letterboxd is just supposed to be for little her little tweets.
Don't say no.
Yeah. Oh, and then, and then of course our Victoria says, it's refreshing to see Lucille Ball playing a woman with realism and depth. It's nice to see that.
Like, I love,
she just has so much charisma. Like, a little goes a long way with her, and it's nice to see something that's more
restrained.
She's more self-possessed. She's a little more.
I mean,
she's a little more. Like I said, they put Lucy on a specific type of medication, and now she. Yeah. And so she's a little
lithium.
Maybe that.
No, I think. Yeah, I said that because as much as I love Lucy and that character that she created, I'm almost a little sad though that we didn't get to see more of her, more of what she could do, because she could.
Yeah, that's why it's like she does the assignment, but this isn't like anyone's iconic top 5 performance.
No, definitely not. Least
of all hers.
But I feel like it revealed something about her that I guess I didn't know was there, or I didn't assume was there,
right.
or maybe just didn't think about at all. I'm like, okay, well, she's known for comedy. But it's in the way that, like, somebody who is a good, like Steve Carell, right, has become this dramatic sort of actor, and sometimes to not great effect, and sometimes to very great effect. But there's all these people in comedy, right, who like sometimes can make this sort of latent career transition to these like dramatic things,
right? And she did like the.
I feel like in a way, not like she did the opposite, but we never saw her leave Lucy once she got to Lucy, right? I mean,
that was just her empire. Like she was established. They were riding that one.
There was no go
They were
looking
riding
back.
that was it.
So this is on the dawn. I mean, this is like before the Spanish landed on the shore. Like, it's right before that moment. Like, this is her right before she blows up. Yeah. So I think at the very least, go and take a look at it for that. Like, knowing that she's on the doorstep of nationwide fame.
Right.
I don't know.
It's worth the watch.
Any other reviews?
No, those are really kind of the main ones.
No, it's fair. Fine. I just want to mention a few movies that were out. Came out that same time. The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. Robin Hood of Monterey. Exposed. Popeye and the Pirates. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Killers All. Bulldog Drummond Strikes Back.
Which a lot of movies.
Yeah, I assume.
They had to get out a lot of material every year.
It wasn't like necessarily these were all the same weekend, because it was. But like, this was all around the same week.
The fact that that's still in the span of a week is also, many titles.
I know. I think Bulldog Drummond Strikes Back must be a sequel to something.
Yeah,
like Bulldog
Strikes Back. I love when the titles have that.
Yeah,
like, I think that would be funny if it didn't have.
Well, that's how they used to do it. Like I mentioned, the Thin Man series. It's like the Thin Man, then After the Thin Man, and then In the Shadow of the Thin Man. Like, things like that. And then finally, just one more title: Rolling Down to Rio. Don't know what that's about. This week in our director's chair is Douglas Sirk. He was born Hans Detlef Sirk in Hamburg, Germany. He was born in 26th of April, 1897, to Danish parents. His father was a newspaper reporter. Couldn't find out what his mother did. Probably his dad. As a kid, he loved the theater, loved cinema. He loved movies for what he called, quote, dramas of swollen emotions. And that's an interesting phrase, considering what he would kind of go on to be known for. In 1919, he enrolled at Munich University to study law, but left following the violent collapse of the Bavarian Soviet Republic. I had to look into that a little bit. I'm not going to bring you guys up to speed. Go look up at the thing on your own. The point is, there was political instability. He left school, and he ended up coming back to Hamburg, goes to university there, and studies philosophy and art instead. It's here that he attends a lecture on the theory of relativity given by Albert Einstein. Which I just think that's fucking cool.
That is cool.
That he's there at the same time. And like, just imagine like hearing that from the mouth of the guy who's, that would be a fun get high and go to that lecture day. He finds a mentor in the art critic Erwin Panofsky. And then he starts getting a job as, the phrase was, a second-line dramaturg, which I came to understand was sort of, you're like an understudy for a director. You're there to help, assistant director, whatever. But a director gets sick, so he finally gets a chance to, take over a production, does really well, and suddenly he's just absorbed into the theater. They're like, oh my God, you're so great. So he has this really great theater directing career in Germany, which actually a lot of filmmakers who came to the United States, in the wake of fascism, they came from really similar backgrounds. Like, it strikes me, like, we've talked about similar stories from other directors we've looked at in the past. I found this was interesting and kind of scary, sad, but he was working during the period of hyperinflation, the stories about the wheelbarrows full of marks. And he said he would pay the crew and everyone would go to the bank before noon, because I guess the bank would close at noon and the new rate would change. And so if you didn't get your money in before lunch, after lunch the rate would be different, and you would only get a percentage of what you earned. That's how
so weird.
That's how rapid the inflation was.
Yeah.
That your money's, you better get it in the bank.
It's already
today.
Depreciating.
It's already, yeah.
So the car being taken off the lot.
It's insane. Cirque's first wife, they had a son together, but then they divorced. She joined the Nazi party. And then she legally barred Cirque from ever seeing their son because Cirque got remarried to a Jewish woman. That son became a child actor, and very prominent one in Nazi Germany.
Oh, wow.
That's like a dark movie right there.
There you go.
Cirque leaves Germany in 1937 for obvious reasons. For a little while, he works in the Netherlands and Switzerland, but he eventually finds his way to the United States. It is here that he changes his name to Douglas Cirque. And Detlef wasn't going to work, I guess. I think it's cool. Detlef Schrempf.
Wow.
In 1942, he's under contract at Columbia directing anti-fascist films pretty quickly, which I'm like, fuck yeah.
Good for him.
Good job.
He was motivated.
He was like, get me in there. But as I said, he's really known for these lush, colorful melodramas that he made for Universal Pictures in the 50s.
Yeah.
Specifically 52 to 59. I'm just going to read the titles out. Magnificent Obsession, All That Heaven Allows, Written on the Wind, Battle Hymn, The Tarnished Angels, A Time to Love and a Time to Die, and Imitation of Life. And then he retires. He makes Imitation of Life, and then he gets out. And he's he leaves the U.S., he retires to Switzerland, and he dies 30 years later.
Wow.
Briefly taught at the local, at a college nearby, but that was it. And his films at the time were pretty well dismissed. People did not like them. They considered them unimportant because it centered on female and domestic issues, or they were considered banal because it was so dramatic, like melodrama, right? The larger than life feelings, or they were thought of as unrealistic because of their style.
Gotcha.
So basically nobody saw anything redeemable about these. But reception has changed, of course, over the years, and they're now seen as masterpieces of irony and a style that conceals its message rather than underscores it, which I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. And a ton of directors talk about Douglas Sirk as an influence. Todd Haynes, I mean, you can see that. So many of his films feel like a Douglas Sirk movie. Pedro Almodovar, I mean, Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. He was like, oh man, yeah, definitely Douglas Sirk influence there with the color and everything.
Yeah.
Wong Kar-wai, David Lynch, John Waters, Fassbinder, Tarantino, even Guillermo del Toro, in an Academy when he won for Shape of Water.
Yeah. He
mentioned Sirk in his acceptance speech. It was one of the great American directors that, although he's technically German-Danish, but whatever. Also, I want to mention Tarantino, somebody who loves style. I mean, I don't know, you may remember in Pulp Fiction when they go to the 50s themed restaurant, Vincent Vega orders the Douglas Sirk steak, extra bloody.
Yeah.
So that's a great little, I love that. Also, John Waters' film Polyester is a deliberate attempt to create a Douglas Sirk type melodrama, and I gotta say Polyester is a fun fucking movie.
Great.
And if you can see it as that, as this is a divine as the heroine, the domestic, it's so fucking good. Anyway, that's all I got.
Awesome.
Who's your best supporting player?
Yeah, again, Boris Karloff had a great scene, but also the Inspector Temple was really great. He had a very he had a sense of humor. He was a bit of a dick, about
here's your moral support. And
he's like, well, I was there the whole time. I was there watching out over you the whole time after the Boris Karloff scene. She's like, he could have killed me. She's like, don't you feel better? I was there the whole time.
Yeah, she's not amused.
Yeah, good sense of humor. Good final moment.
It's
good
funny,
stuff.
that you bring up Boris Karloff because I wrote down Matilda, which was his assistant. Because,
right.
Which I mean, of course, I had to look her up, but.
Right.
Anne Cody, I just thought she what you said earlier about the gesture, she communicated so much about their relationship, so fast. Yeah. It was oh, you were the long suffering woman who's kind of his caretaker, kind of his assistant, who he sort of abuses, but also can't live without.
Yeah.
I understood immediately, in just a few little looks, sighs. She was great.
Where did she go?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Would you watch this again?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't I'm not rushing to the YouTube to play it again. It is free on YouTube, which is cool.
Yes,
it's on Tubi
thank you
and
for
YouTube.
mentioning that. Yes. So please go check it out.
I appreciate having that accessibility.
I do too.
For this
In
title.
fact, once I clicked on that, it opened up. There's a whole bunch of old noirs on YouTube in their entirety. So have at it.
Yeah, this is a good. It's worth the watch, and especially just it being the sort of foundational learning opportunity growth thing. It's a competently made movie by people who I think knew and ultimately were capable of doing so much more.
Yeah.
So
it's it's when a bunch of film students are still this is our senior project.
It just it's not it's not students. It's not a film school movie, but I wanted to say that too because that is sort of the
it feels like it came out of a workshop situation or something. Before we go, I did want to mention. This is me talking. Chelsea doesn't have to own any of this if she doesn't want to.
I would be happy to.
I find the voice of George Sanders to just be, and I'm not alone here. It's just dreamy. It's amazing, or it's beautiful, and
it's iconic.
But I can't seem to imitate it because guess what? I'm not a bass. And I'm sitting here trying.
I just think you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I'm not. But
you could do it.
Dear listeners, this is the official announcement of the George Sanders impression contest. So if you want to know what he sounds like, here's a little bit of him talking.
Would you mind collaborating with me in a little experiment? Slip your watch off your wrist. Now try turning it inside out like this. Don't force it. You can't do it, can you? Well, that's precisely the point. Twisto Flex by Spidell. Fascinating.
And so it's pretty simple. Just try to do an impression, record it, email it to us at abreathoffreshmovie@gmail.com. We'll play it on air.
Yeah, dude.
So don't send it unless you want to get airtime.
I'm down.
And then we'll pick a winner. I don't know what the winner gets. I didn't think that far ahead. But we'll come up with something.
A firm handshake.
A firm handshake. I mean, bragging rights for a start.
Sure.
You can, again, email us at abreathoffreshmovie@gmail.com. You don't have to send us a George Sanders impression. You can just email us. We also love reviews. Reviews help the show. It helps us rank. It helps new people find us.
You can also buy a sticker.
You can buy some stickers or various things on TeePublic that link to the stores in the show notes on this episode and every other episode. Thank you so much for listening. I mean that from the bottom of my George Sanders heart.
There you go.
I don't know.
It's a good one. Keep being awesome, and thanks for listening. You're my best friend, and I love you. Hey, I have a question about the movie really quick. What's a champagne cocktail? Isn't that just champagne?
I don't know.
Did they mix it with vodka? Was she having a French 75?
That's a good...
She's like, champagne cocktail.
You know what?
That really hung me up.
I'm like, where's my phone?
Is it champagne?
Let's look this up.
Or is it cocktail?
Champagne cocktail. Let's answer this. Okay. They add some sugar, bitters, brandy, and a maraschino cherry. So
okay, brandy. That is,
that is a cocktail.
Yeah.
Officially. All right. Well, everyone enjoy your holiday.
Happy holidays.
And your cocktails.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, bye.